In life, our days can be either rough or easygoing, sometimes both at the same time. But when we look back at our past, there's only one time in our lives we always tend to reminisce about: childhood. As a kid, we develop a sense of imagination, a sense of wonderment, and moments of excitement. This can be attributed to those around us growing up, such as best friends, cousins, brothers, and sisters. But that's only a small part of the puzzle. So, what's the larger part? Well, that huge part of the puzzle is nostalgia. Just remembering the good times that we had as a child. That, of course, comes from being an adult, something that I know many out there have experienced many times over. We look back at that imaginative spirit that we once had, that sense of exploration, the joy of finding out something new for the very first time. As adults, we yearn for that time to recreate those moments, even briefly. Something that can bring back that excitement we once had as children. In life, we realize that this can be achieved by one thing: art. By consuming it and creating it. Whether it's collecting toys, figurines, or dolls, to playing video games, we want to recreate that feeling we once had. But what about the people who create those games and toys? Well, for the most part, they are like us. They want to restore that feeling of nostalgia. Well, not all. That's the nature of the business for you. But no other medium has ever achieved it so effortlessly than cartoons and comics. These two mediums haven't only been synonymous with childhood itself, but also inspired many of us to be creative and continue the cycle of providing nostalgia in unique ways. The love of comics and animation still motivates adults, young or old, to go to conventions and dress up as their favorite characters. These people become parents and pass that nostalgic torch onto their next of kin. It's a glorious cycle indeed. Many creators, whether it's comics or animation, have strived to create something great. Whether it was done out of necessity or a genuine love to reach fans, one thing is evident: nostalgia inspired them. But there has only been a handful of creators that managed to embody the sense of nostalgia so well that was genuinely a part of who they were. That aura they exuded was a sense of childhood imagination. On March 1st, 2024, we all lost someone who embodied that so perfectly we all loved him for it. A man who inspired many to emulate his success and his vision. A man who was instrumental in bringing many children of the past to what is considered a cultural phenomenon today. That phenomenon is known as anime. And the man who was responsible for it all, his name was Akira Toriyama. So, who was Akira Toriyama? Well, we usually think of him as a man who had a zest for life. A man who was hardworking and very passionate about the works that he created. A man who helped usher in a different vision of a hero. A hero that was much like the man himself. In turn, he made us believe that we could become strong if we just trained and worked diligently. But once again, who was Akira Toriyama? How and why this particular man holds so much weight amongst his peers and fans alike, those before him and after him? What made him the man he became? What was the inspiration behind his artwork? And lastly, what was his true impact on animation and manga itself? Well, give me a few minutes of your time as I process what he truly meant to us. This is an ode to Akira Toriyama. To understand his impact on those he touched with his life work, manga readers and anime lovers alike, we must first explore the life of the man himself. His story starts like most people, but in Japan, the Aichi prefecture of Nagoya to be exact, on April 5th, 1955. This was when Japan was in a state of reconstruction, which had started 10 years prior with the United States' involvement in rebuilding the company after World War II. By 1955, Japan had experienced a bustling economy that created many salarymen and reconstructed buildings that housed families of 3 or 4s. Particularly in Nagoya, it had become a place for car manufacturing, such as Nissan and Toyota. There, his father owned a car repair business. Young Akira admired his father and soon shared a love for motorbikes. But his childhood had him active in his imagination while watching his favorite anime at the time, that being Osamu Tezuka's Tetsuwan Otamu, but better known to us Westerners as Astro Boy, a manga that made its premiere 3 years before Akira was born. In school, he was drawing pictures of his classmates. Akira was a kid who wanted to make his fellow peers happy. Akira started to become influenced to draw more after he began watching Disney animated films such as 101 Dalmatians and Fleischer Popeye cartoons as well, and began reading manga such as Osomatsu-kun. Even though Akira drew just to keep himself entertained, he found that this was his calling after he won a contest at a local studio. Thus, the legend was, not yet. Fast forward to 1979, at the ripe age of 19, in Prefectural Industrial High School to study graphic design, but later dropped out in 1979. He joined an advertising agency in Nagoya, where he could employ his love for art. But he hated just drawing random objects and wanted to draw something that he was passionate about. Upon being there for 3 years, he realized that his path was elsewhere. But Akira knew that he was destined for greater things, so he did the best thing he could do. He packed up his things and left. He decided that he wanted to become a manga artist. At first, it didn't seem like the right decision, but when Jump Magazine held a contest for new manga artists, he finally got the drive to start drawing manga. Even though he didn't win the contest per se, he caught the attention of Katsuhiro Torishima, who was the editor of Jump at the time, a man who later became instrumental in launching the Big Three. In case you are wondering what they are, it's Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach. Anyway, Katsuhiro decided to give him a shot. writing short stories for the publication. This led him to create his first manga, Wonder Island, with Weekly Shonen Jump in 1978. He followed that up with Highlight Island, a Tomato Girl Detective in 1979. But these weren't super successful with the publication. But Kazuhiko saw something great in Akira. It kept giving him chances to make it. He would finally get something worthy of Torishima's acceptance. After going through many drafts, he finally got something. In 1980, he created and released Dr. Slump. This was a story of an inventor who built a robot, a girl robot. Her name was Arale, and she went on some very comedic adventures. The manga ended up becoming an overnight success, earning the highest reader fan base of 1980. So much that it won the Shogakukan Manga Award in 1981. Of course, with its popularity amongst readers, it was ready for the center stage. Dr. Slump made its way to Fuji Television in 1981. It retells Senbei, a not-so-well-off inventor, and his creation Arale, a super robot girl with superhuman strength, and it sure wasn't an action series in the slightest. Dr. Slump was highly comedic and had both of them going off on misadventures in their hometown of Penguin Village. Nevertheless, the children of Japan couldn't get enough of it. Toys and merchandise couldn't stay on shelves. Akira Toriyama was the new manga sensation, and Dr. Slump was the darling of Japanese television. Speaking of that, it only ever reached huge heights in Japan. The series lasted from 1981 to 1986 and amassed 243 episodes during its run. This was simply due to anime still being new worldwide. It did see moderate success in Spain, Italy, and Mexico, but never the height of its run in Japan. As for the manga itself, it had reached 236 chapters and ended its run in 1984. But Akira didn't rest on his laurels. After the end of Dr. Slump, he started work on his next manga. This time, it would be unlike anything he had ever done up to that point. This was Akira's take on Journey to the West, a Chinese novel comprised of 100 chapters written by Wu Chengen in the year 1500 that told the story of Tribukita going on a journey to India to retrieve some sacred scrolls, along with his animal spirits Monkey, Pigsy, and Sandy. For Akira, he took all that and made this. Well, not quite. See, even though Dragon Ball is based on Journey to the West, there has been many retellings of the story up to that point. Instead, Akira was inspired by the 1960 animated film Saiyuki. This was an animated adaptation of Osamu Tezuka's Boku no Son Goku. In America, it was retitled Alakazam the Great. Dragon Ball tells the story of Goku, a boy with a monkey tail who is found by an old man named Gohan in a capsule as a baby. He raises him as his son. Soon enough, he goes off on an adventure, Boma, to retrieve 7 orbs called the Dragon Balls. Supposedly, the inspiration for Dragon Ball came from Akira's love of Asian cinema, particularly Jackie Chan and his 1978 martial arts classic, Drunken Master. In that film, Jackie is a young man who lacks discipline and is taught by his uncle to fight in the ways of a drunken monkey. Interestingly enough, Jackie Chan happened to be inspired by Dr. Slump to create his films as well, even dressing up as Arale in his 1985 film, My Lucky Stars. Guess great minds do think alike. Nevertheless, this combo of these two ideas made Dragon Ball a huge success. For this outing, Akira was getting better with his artwork. So, you may be wondering why Dragon Ball looks the way that it does. Well, Akira wasn't only influenced by Journey to the West, Popeye cartoons, Walt Disney, and also Matsukun. This time, he employed an art technique called ligne claire, an art style that was popularized by Georges Prosper Remy, but better known as Hergé. He was the man who created The Adventures of Tintin. The art style used strong and consistent lines throughout, with little shading added. This was perfect for manga, since most mangakas never drew in color. The use of ligne claire made the action pop on the pages, but Dragon Ball had more going for it than its art style. The manga was something that he was very passionate about doing, and it showed. The humor that Akira displayed with Dr. Slump was complemented by well-thought-out characters and a classic plot of good versus evil in Dragon Ball. But this evolution in Akira's storytelling didn't resonate with readers at first. Dragon Ball had failed to capture the same reader base Weekly Shonen Jump had with Dr. Slump. So Akira decided to change the direction of the story. That involved Goku and Bulma trying to retrieve Dragon Balls so Bulma can wish for a boyfriend, to Goku wanting to train with Master Roshi, along with his fellow student Krillin to enter the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai. It was this arc that finally catapulted Dragon Ball to immense success. Dragon Ball didn't end up only becoming one of the best-selling mangas that Weekly Shonen Jump published, but also ended up surpassing Dr. Slump's reader base by a long mile. It had generated 6.5 million copies sold alone. And as with any manga that becomes a success, anime soon followed. Dragon Ball would make its premiere on Fuji Television on February 26, 1986. And unsurprisingly, it was an instant success. Unfortunately, the anime only lasted for 3 years, ending on April 19, 1986. It had amassed 153 episodes in the process. Here's the kicker. By 1989, the manga was still going strong and was gaining an even bigger place in the manga industry. Weekly Shonen Jump was riding high off the success of Dragon Ball in particular. As it became so popular, you couldn't find a person who wasn't reading it. Dragon Ball ended on airwaves was the beginning of something great because on April 26, 1986, a mere 7 days, Toei Animation and Kazuhiko Torishima would introduce audiences to this. That's right, Dragon Ball Z, the next chapter in the Dragon Ball saga. And that it was. The story now takes place 5 years after Goku defeats Piccolo Jr. to win the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. Goku is now married to Chi-Chi and has a son named Gohan. Now, do we have to explain Dragon Ball Z at this point? Unfortunately, I must. Like a wise man once said, you must not assume the extent of knowledge of others. In other words, let me break it down. Dragon Ball Z was a huge departure from Dragon Ball. The days of Goku going on adventures were over. Now, he had to contend against his brother Raditz, who came to Earth so he could take it over. Raditz kidnaps his son in order to lure out Goku. With the help of his former foe Piccolo, they must battle to stop Raditz. What follows is the status quo Dragon Ball Z would establish. Now, it was about becoming the strongest and training to fight against foes that threatened the planet's safety. Well, at least for the anime. See, Akira Toriyama once said in an interview with Wired Japan that he didn't like the way Goku was portrayed in the anime. This was the direction of the late Toyo Ashida. Now, if you don't know who Toyo Ashida is, let me enlighten you. Toyo had brought several manga properties to anime form with great success, such as Space Battleship Yamato, Vampire Hunter D, and his great success up to that point, Hokuto no Ken. Better known in the West his fist of the North Star. Anyway, Akira felt Goku was never a hero. He portrayed Goku in the manga as someone just wanting to be stronger for himself only, not to protect others as in the anime. His need to be stronger is what fueled him. Despite his true intention in portraying Goku, it didn't matter because Dragon Ball Z had become a huge success in Japan. By the end of its run in 1995, it was making its way to televisions across shores. In September 1997, Dragon Ball made its premiere on TV in Mexico. To say that it was a hit over there was truly an understatement. It resonated with them so much that Goku himself became a cultural phenomenon over there. But Dragon Ball Z had to conquer one region, one that would be the most vital of them all. That being the USA. What you must understand is the role anime played in America. Anime was already on airwaves, mostly regulated to syndication, dating back to Astro Boy. Anime continued to have a presence on TV with the likes of Speed Racer, Robotech, and Voltron. But despite that, anime remained virtually unknown to many Westerners. By the time the 90s had rolled around, anime was mostly regulated to VHS releases and shops that sold bootleg tapes of anime and various related merchandising. In other words, anime was niche, something only a few knew about. On March 17, 1997, Cartoon Network gave viewers something new and fresh, a programming block that changed the entire scope of animation.
All audiences, any rebroadcast, or retransmission without express written consent of Toonami and Cartoon Network is strictly prohibited.
That's right, Toonami. This is where it all started for a lot of viewers coming into animation. This was 1997, and as you might know or not, TV had gone through a lot of changes. Cartoon Network was one of those changes. Something that was only seen on Saturday mornings was now presented on a 24-hour-a-day cable network. 1987 was the beginning of it all. But in terms of Dragon Ball Z, it didn't make its premiere here, but on syndicated television alongside Sailor Moon, in a dub that has now been long forgotten. More on that in a few minutes. Unfortunately, the series didn't continue its run on syndicated television, but the presence of Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon changed the landscape. Soon, many other anime started making their premiere on syndicated television. In 1985, Akira Toriyama and Kazuhiko Torishima would become involved in a project that would cement them among the greats in the eyes of gamers. Here it is, Chrono Trigger, a game that is considered a classic today, and you would be hard-pressed to find a gamer who didn't love this game. It was already destined for greatness on day one of its release on March 11th, 1995. This was a collaboration with Yuji Horii, the creator of Dragon Quest, and Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy. Creators of two of the biggest RPG franchises at the time. But Yuji Horii brought in someone that made Dragon Quest huge besides its gameplay. That was Akira Toriyama, Yuji's main character designer for every Dragon Quest game ever conceived. He contributed to the entire look of the game, including the backgrounds and, of course, the character designs. He even pitched in contributing to the story as well. Chrono Trigger went on to sell 2 million copies in Japan in only 2 months after its release. A game that was only beaten by Dragon Quest VI in sales. That was a huge feat considering how big Dragon Quest was in Japan. This was a game that made kids skip school to go buy it and play. A game where the government had to make Enix move their release dates for the games to a weekend. Chrono Trigger sat behind it. That was a feat in itself. Its reception in America was just as great. Even though it didn't sell as much as it did in Japan, several game publications heaped it with immense praise, including Nintendo Power, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and GamePro. The game in North America was one of the best-selling titles on the NES of that year, selling 289,000, but later selling 2.3 million during the lifetime of the game. So, why does the success of Chrono Trigger factor in any of this? Well, it's a known fact that most Western gamers at the time were fans of JRPGs, and in turn started to appreciate anime a lot more. Dragon Ball Z made its premiere in syndication in 1996, during the height of Chrono Trigger's continued success. Akira Toriyama had more eyeballs on his art. The anime scene also started to skyrocket with the word of mouth. The mystique was replaced by a hunger for more anime on screen. Toonami satiated their hunger with past anime such as Voltron and Robotech. But it was 1998 when the block became the place to watch anime.
Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon, come,
Dragon Ball Z made its way to the block on August 31st, 1998. This time, the series had gone to Funimation, a fairly new anime distribution studio at the time, but not when it first came on Toonami. See, Toonami reintroduced Dragon Ball Z to viewers who finally had access to cable with the syndicated episodes that were done by Saban and dubbed by Ocean Productions and Pioneer. Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon became a huge success on the network, and soon Toonami was the talk of the town. It helped introduce viewers to many more anime afterwards, such as Gundam Wing. Things went great for the block, and Dragon Ball Z played a huge part in all of that. So now it comes down to this. Why does Akira hold so much weight amongst his peers and fans alike? Well, the reception of Dragon Ball Z was more than its premiere on Toonami. After it premiered, anime became more of a staple in homes across America as cable became more accessible to many people. Anime became the talk of schoolyards and classrooms. Soon, the big networks started to get into the anime market in the early 2000s. It had boomed immensely, and everyone wanted a part of it. Dragon Ball Z would end its run on Toonami in 2003. Even though it still aired with reruns, many other anime started to take the reins of Dragon Ball Z's grip on the scene, at least on TV. Dragon Ball Z had staying power. Mexico and Latin America were the ones that kept the fire alive. DBZ ended up becoming hugely popular in these two regions of the world. So popular, it eclipsed Japan's success. To this day, Goku is more recognizable than any character in the country, even having restaurants named after him. In Spain, soccer games had a moment of silence when a character died in the series. Dragon Ball Mania was everywhere. As for Akira, he had quit drawing manga for a while after the end of Dragon Ball Z. He had grown fatigued over doing long story arcs. He decided to do shorter stories. It brought him joy to work on other stories and characters. But the fans kept calling him back to the franchise. This was a time when Dragon Ball Z had gotten to a massive pop status. With video games and toys on shelves, anything you could imagine as a product, Goku was adorned on them. Akira knew he had to come back to what made him so endearing to the fans. He finally answered that call. Yes, because he would have direct involvement in the next chapter of Dragon Ball. News was announced of Dragon Ball's return to animation, but this time to the box office. And I'm not talking about the Japanese box office only. On March 30th, 2013, Toei Animation and 20th Century Fox Studios released Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods. This time, Goku and the gang face off against Beerus, the god of destruction, after he awakens from his slumber. Now Goku, as he always does, must find a way to become stronger than a god so he can defeat him. This was the first in the franchise to ever be released in IMAX. This was a huge event. Akira finally gave audiences a true continuation of the storyline. It would be released a year later in America on August 5th, 2014. The movie was a huge success for a release of its kind. The movie played for 4 days in the theaters and made over $2 million at the box office. The movie ended up earning a total of $50 million worldwide. The reception of Battle of Gods made for a good showing with worldwide audiences. As with any successful film at the box office, sequels were bound to come. In Dragon Ball's case, this came on August 5th, 2015 in America, and on April 18th, 2015 in Japan. Akira would make his screenwriting debut with Dragon Ball Resurrection F. That's right, Akira was now an official screenwriter. Here, he weaves a tale that takes place after Battle of Gods. It has Goku alongside Beerus and Whis and the gang facing off against a returning foe, the ever-resilient Frieza, who is revived with the Dragon Balls and seeks ultimate revenge against Goku and Vegeta. Resurrection F was another resounding success for Akira and Toei, making $61.7 million worldwide. Akira realized audiences always clamored for Dragon Ball Z, but Akira didn't want to revisit DBZ again after the release of Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. Instead, he went off to work on short stories again. Jacko the Galactic Patrolman. But once again, the fans just wanted more DBZ. Akira decided to give it a shot one more time. On July 5th, 2015 in Japan and January 7th, 2017 in America, Akira gave fans what they wanted all along. Goku was back, and so were his friends and family, in a new chapter of the Dragon Ball saga, with Dragon Ball Super. Akira's involvement in bringing his prized creation into a new era of anime that was at its height of popularity by this point. It was a new era of Goku and Vegeta trained to be the best. This was the true sequel to Dragon Ball Z that everyone had waited for. Akira finally cleaned up Toei's messy take on Dragon Ball GT. Dragon Ball Super takes place 6 months after the defeat of Majin Buu. Dragon Ball Super retells the events of Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, with Goku and the gang having to contend with Beerus to prove he was strong enough to stop him. Dragon Ball Super marks the franchise's jump to HD. It brought fans back to Goku and Vegeta living to fight and get powerful, to face off against another threat that arises, and they have to face off with a foe that matches Goku's power in a daunting way. Dragon Ball Super was a Dragon Ball Z fan's fantasy come to fruition. To no surprise, Dragon Ball Super was a resounding success on the new Toonami programming block. I will touch on Toonami in the future. That story alone is worth telling. Anyway, Dragon Ball Mania was in full effect across the world, especially in Mexico, where the fight between Goku and Jiren was advertised like an actual pay-per-view fight. As with anything turned to anime, it surely had a manga behind it. Not with Dragon Ball Super. It was the other way around. Dragon Ball Super made its debut in manga form on June 20th, 2015. But unfortunately, Akira wasn't at the helm of the manga. Instead, the reins were passed to Toyotaro, who himself is a self-proclaimed avid Dragon Ball fan. In other words, Akira passed the torch on to the next generation. With the passing of the torch came new ideas. See, Dragon Ball Super's anime and manga tell the story differently from one another. Akira supervised its creation by writing out outlines and main story elements for Toyotaro to build upon. This also extended to the art as well, as Toyotaro did most of the art, while Akira provided a basis for him to draw out the characters. From a man who used to let his assistants occasionally draw the backgrounds in his mangas, to letting another person draw and write his most beloved manga property was a huge deal for the publication and upcoming mangakas as a whole. Even though Akira Toriyama was involved with Dragon Ball Super's manga, he decided to finally step away from manga completely. In an interview, he went on to say that it was because of the pen he used to draw all of the mangas he ever created was gone. Whether it was for that reason or he just felt tired to a point where he couldn't do it anymore, it didn't matter, because Akira had already done what he set out to do years prior. Dragon Ball Super would end its run in anime on March 15th, 2018. October 5th, 2019 in America, with 131 episodes under its belt. But that wasn't it for Dragon Ball Super. Akira and Toei decided to make a fan-favorite character canon with a new movie, Dragon Ball Super Broly, a remake of sorts of the movie that made Broly infamous. Dragon Ball Super Broly has Goku and the gang trying to fight a long-forgotten Saiyan. It's a true continuation of the series, as it takes place right after the Universal Survival Saga of DBS. Akira supervised the entire production and wrote the screenplay as well. This was the most movie-like story that he has ever written, as it told the story of the Saiyan race itself and Broly. It topped Battle of Gods' effort in terms of animation and fight scenes. Dragon Ball Super Broly did something the franchise hadn't done before. It ended up becoming one of the highest-grossing anime films of all time. The film made $120 million worldwide, easily eclipsing the reception of Battle of Gods. Toei and Akira Toriyama repeated this success with another Dragon Ball Super film, Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Despite the redundant title, the film ended up making $102 million worldwide at the box office. Dragon Ball Mania was thriving, and as we know by now, has no signs of dying out. Especially with Super Dragon Ball heroes keeping the flames of fandom burning, the newly announced video game Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which brings back the fan favorite Tenkaichi Budokai series of DBZ games to the new generation of consoles, and the upcoming Dragon Ball Daima, a project that was unfortunately Akira's last. This was his last contribution to the saga, to usher in a new chapter of Dragon Ball. Whereas the anime ended its run indefinitely, the saga continued in the manga and still does at this moment. For now.
Huh. All right, have it your way, but I wouldn't bank on it if I were you.
Akira Toriyama. The mention of his name speaks to us all. We remember the years that his work gave us, the memories, the inspiration for us to create. A name that holds weight amongst his peers because he never stopped giving us his all, even though he always claimed he would stop doing so. He could have gone away from the anime and manga world and everyone would have still held him in high regard. See, Akira ended up becoming one of the richest and well-known mangakas of all time. But riches never truly mattered to him in the long run. Akira was a man who loved art first and foremost. That was his all. The same love he held for his family and pets, art was that for him. Akira Toriyama. His name instantly conjures up what he meant to us individually. He spent the rest of his life restoring the same nostalgia that we had of spending mornings and afternoons watching Dragon Ball Z. Those same people went on to create the next generation of shonen manga to carry the torch. They were inspired to reinvent the wheel, just as Akira created an avenue for them to do so. People such as Ichiro Oda with One Piece, Tite Kubo with Bleach, Masashi Kishimoto with Naruto, Hiro Mashima with Fairy Tail, Yoshiro Togashi with Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter, to more recent manga to anime darlings that are on their way to becoming classics themselves, such as Koyoharu Gotoge and Bochi with Kimetsu no Yaiba, aka Demon Slayer, and Kohei Horikoshi with My Hero Academia. All of these anime and manga have Dragon Ball Z's DNA in them. The heart and passion that Akira put into his art are the same that they channeled into theirs. They went on to become hits that still to this day make people go out and buy games and merchandise adorning them. But Akira's impact mostly affected the people, the everyday people, the ones who get up and try to live another day, despite not having the strength to carry on. Despite Akira claiming Goku was never a hero in the first place, his claim ended up becoming false in the long run, because today, Goku is an icon and a hero to many, taking center stage at Thanksgiving Day parades, having places named after him, the whole yard. Goku was a kid who came from a place that was long gone, grew up and learned about life along the way. Despite looking different, he never stopped trying to persevere in the face of danger. To become stronger, he trained and trained diligently until he was good enough to face what was ahead of him. In turn, he had overcome his obstacles in life. He became a man and knew he had to continue becoming the strongest he could be. He grew up and got married to the woman he loved. But he never stopped being who he was. A man always trying to be stronger to face the challenges ahead and teaching his son to do the same. Dragon Ball is a coming-of-age generational tale that resonated more with people than any other story in the genre. It gave a country like Mexico, which didn't have any access to television shows in America, a shot to watch something great. Goku was all they had, and they saw themselves in him. Murals adorn his image throughout the country. Today, he is their hero. Even the mayor of a town in Mexico led the citizens to pay tribute to Akira. That was the power of Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Z even gave many black children in not so well off neighborhoods a figure to look up to. Past all the negativity they saw outside, it was an escape from it all. They had an avenue to look at a hero that embodied the strength and perseverance they never saw. Someone they can grow up to be like. Those same children grew up and became great citizens in life. Dragon Ball Z gave citizens in countries like Brazil, Spain, France, Italy, and the Philippines a hero that made them forget about the ills of the world for just 30 minutes of their time. Goku is a hero, not because he can power up and overcome his adversaries, not because he can throw Kamehamehas. No, Goku is a hero because he made us believe that we could also be strong and great like he was. Whether you were black, white, Asian, Muslim, or Latino, Goku was what they saw in themselves. From that fan feverishly creating fan fiction stories and art based on Dragon Ball Z out of pure passion, to that kid just picking up the mangas for the very first time, Akira Toriyama gave us something to reminisce over and revisit nostalgically for eternity. A life without Akira Toriyama on this planet can be looked as a total loss. But truthfully, he gave us his all on those pages. So we shouldn't be sad that he's gone. Instead, we should be happy for his moment of rest. He gave us the gift of hope. That was Akira Toriyama. Now ride off on that Nimbus cloud to the heavens. Hope to see you on Snake's Way one day, my friend. From the bottom of my heart, I would love to give my deepest gratitude to everyone who watched the entire episode. I was compelled to do this episode upon hearing his passing. He meant as much to me as he did for you all. A world without him is going to be hard. But as I said, he gave us his all, and that's enough for me to remember the times Dragon Ball Z entertained us. My memories of Dragon Ball Z were the first time seeing it in syndication alongside Sailor Moon, waking up in the morning with my late big brother to watch it. When you saw it, you knew it was something unlike anything you had seen before. But it was its premiere on Toonami that made me start appreciating anime a lot more, and has been that way ever since. Nostalgia is the most priceless commodity we all have, and the kicker is that it's free. Always remember that. So, what were your memories of Dragon Ball Z or anything Akira Toriyama created? Please share your thoughts in the comments section, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It helps me so much. That's the best feedback that I can get. Also, don't forget to turn on the notification bell if you are subscribed. That helps as well. We have to remember that this life is so fleeting. So please get out there and just enjoy life. Go watch some anime or read a great manga. With that said, this is where I have to bid you all farewell. Please come back as I delve into another piece of animation history throughout the gallery on the next episode of the Cartoon Cube. Till then, Godspeed.